Hello again, Ralph. Just to bring everybody up to speed, so far in this video series we have covered the Exodus and the Hyksos and the Israelites. And here we are now today discussing Genesis. Normally, we would logically follow a chronology of biblical events, yet here we are in episode 3 discussing Genesis. Can you expand on this discrepancy of the chronology, please?
Yes, that's interesting because the Genesis story actually probably comes after the Exodus. That's why I started this sort of discussion with the Exodus, because it actually happened about 300 years later. If we look at the evidence by Manetho, who was an Egyptian historian, he writes quite a lot about these subjects, and he said there were 2 exoduses out of Egypt, not one. And basically the Torah has conflated the 2 exoduses into one. And so we move on about 300 years from the time of Amosi I and the Hyksos, and we come to the very influential era of Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. And my theory on the Genesis story, because I thought initially we would not be able to understand where the Genesis story came from because it's so it's so fantastical. I thought there would be no history in it. But on reading it and rereading it, it struck me that it was exactly the same as the hymn to the Arton. So what I did is I went through it bit by bit, reading it back in the original Egyptian as well. And it does look as though it is almost a complete copy of the hymn to the Arton, which was written by Pharaoh Akhenaten, of course. This is about 1350 BC. Pharaoh Akhenaten, of course, becoming the first monotheist, which is another similarity, of course, to the Israelites. And of course, Akhenaten's brother was called Moses. So again, we have another similarity. So what's happened, I think, here is that someone got hold of this story, and they looked at it and they thought, well, actually, this looks like a creation epic, because in reality, the hymn to the Arton is about the dawning of a new day. But if you read it quickly, it sort of sounds like the creation of the earth instead of the dawning of a new day. And so what I think happened is that some scribe, deliberately or otherwise, put this at the beginning of the biblical story as a creation epic, when it was not a creation epic at all. And therefore, the people within this creation epic, that's, Adam and Eve, are actually Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. And again, I can't go through all of the evidence in the time available, but take it from me that the evidence is very good. But I'll give you one snippet, of course, that Adam and Eve were always said to be naked within the Garden of Eden. Now, if we look at the Amarna story, that's the story of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Akhenaten and Nefertiti were always naked. They were portrayed as being naked within the Garden of Eden. So we have a love couple naked in the story in the Garden of Eden, and a love couple naked in the Garden of Eden. So quite obviously, Eden and Eden are the same. So the Garden of Eden is actually the Garden of Aten, the garden of the sun god Aten, who was the main god, the only god of Pharaoh Akhenaten. So this is the basis of the Genesis story. And again, it takes Israelite history, Jewish history, back into Egypt. They were the Hyksos, and they were Pharaoh Akhenaten and Nefertiti, who were related to the Hyksos, of course. They came from Lower Egypt, the same as the Hyksos did. So we're beginning to set a trend here that all of the biblical events came out of Egypt, and they are real history of events, of real events within Egypt. And we've skipped over some of them because there are many more. But there are elements within the Joseph's story, Joseph, him of the coat of many colors, where it appears that we have verbatim conversations between Joseph and Pharaoh that have come down to us over 3,500 years, which I think is quite amazing. And we have their actual conversations as they were made at the time, because they make sense if you know what they were talking about. And of course, we were not talking about shepherds looking after sheep here. So we have to reinterpret this in terms of Egyptian theology. But the entire Bible is becoming recognizable as a story of Egypt. Not just any old story of Egypt, but a story of the kings of Egypt. So basically what I'm saying is it was the day book. The pharaohs of Egypt used to keep a day book, which was a book of the events and the people within the royal court. And the Torah is that book, is the day book. It keeps a history of the royal family, the Hyksos royal family of Egypt.
As we continue exploring the information and research presented by Ralph Ellis, we ask you to visit the Gospel of King Jesus on Facebook. Post your questions, comments, and opinions on the page for Ralph and other page members to engage. We look forward to the discussion.
O solar disk, beginning of life, when you rise in the eastern horizon of heaven, you fill every land with your beauty. You are beautiful, great, glittering, high above the earth. Your rays, they encompass the lands, even all you have made. O Ra, although you are afar, your rays reach down to earth. Although you are present in the eyes of men, they do not know the course you follow in the heaven. When you set in the western horizon of heaven, the world is in darkness, like the dead. People sleep in their chambers. At night, every lion comes forth from his den. All serpents, they sting. Darkness reigns. The world is in silence, for the sun has gone to rest in his horizon. Bright is the earth when you rise in the horizon. The darkness is banished. When you send forth your rays, the two lands are in daily festivity. Men and women awake and stand upon their feet, for you have raised them up. After purifying their bodies, they uplift their arms in adoration to your dawning. All cattle rest upon their herbage. The birds fly away from their nests, their wings uplifted in adoration to your vital force. All beings live when you have risen for them. The barks sail upstream and downstream the Nile alike. Every highway is open because you have dawned. The fish in the river leap up before you, and your rays are in the midst of the great sea. O you, sole God, beside whom there is no other, whose symbol is the sun, you did create the earth according to your heart while you were alone. Men, women, cattle, and all wild beasts that walk, fly, swim, or crawl. You set all in their places. You supply their necessities. For all of your children have their possessions, and their days are reckoned. You are the one who creates the man-child in woman, who makes seed in man, who gives life to the child in the body of its mother, who soothes all that they may not weep, who gives breath to animate everyone that he makes. On the day of birth, you open their mouths in speech. Their tongues are diverse in speech, their forms likewise, and their skins. For you, divider, have divided the people into races. But to them all, you are the same and ever present.